General Vexitar stood before the assembled war council of the hegemony, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of dismissive confidence. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lights of the command chamber, and his compound eyes reflected the holographic display of Earth floating between them. "Soft," he declared, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "These humans are soft creatures of flesh and water. They break easily, cry when injured, and require constant sustenance. Their homeworld is a paradise that has never known true hardship." The other council members, representatives of a dozen conquered species, shifted uncomfortably. Admiral Kethros of the crystalline Vorthak leaned forward. "General, our intelligence suggests—" "Intelligence?" Vextar's laugh was a harsh, chittering sound. "I have studied their transmissions. They make entertainment about imaginary conflicts, weep over fictional characters, and celebrate acts of mercy. They are a species that has grown weak in comfort." He gestured to the hologram with one of his secondary arms. "Look at their cities, soft curves instead of fortified angles, gardens where weapon emplacements should be. They even keep other species as companions, feeding and caring for creatures that serve no tactical purpose." The hegemony had conquered 47 systems in the past century. Each victory had followed the same pattern: overwhelming force, swift subjugation, integration into their empire. Vextar had personally led campaigns against the warrior clans of Zarion VII and the hive minds of the Cygnus Reach. All had fallen before his strategic brilliance and the might of his crimson fleet. "The humans will surrender within a solar cycle," Vextar continued. "Their leaders will see our ships and offer us their resources rather than watch their people suffer. It is their nature." Commander Zith Allah, a scarred veteran of the Zarion campaigns, raised a cautious voice. "Sir, perhaps we should consider a larger force. The humans control 17 systems. 17 systems of soft, pampered civilians." Vextar cut her off. "I will take the 47th Battle Group. 3,000 ships will be more than sufficient to demonstrate our superiority. The humans will understand the futility of resistance." 3 weeks later, the Crimson Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the hegemony's wrath, watching the peaceful blue-green world grow larger on the viewscreen. "No defensive fleet rising to meet us," reported his tactical officer. "Long-range sensors detect only civilian traffic and some primitive orbital installations." "As expected," Vextar replied. "Open a channel to their leadership. Let us expedite their surrender." But the response that came was not what he anticipated. A human female, her hair streaked with silver, appeared on the communication screen. She wore no armor, carried no visible weapons, and yet something in her steady gaze made several of his officers step back from their stations. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Command," she said simply. "You have 30 minutes to leave our system." Vextar's mandibles spread in what his species considered a smile. "I am General Vextar of the hegemony. I command 3,000 ships and the finest warriors in the galaxy. You will surrender unconditionally." The human's expression didn't change. 29 minutes. The general terminated the connection with a sharp gesture. "Begin orbital bombardment of their military installations. Avoid population centers. We need workers for the labor camps." That was when Vextar learned his first lesson about humans. The primitive orbital installations suddenly blazed to life, revealing themselves as heavily armed defense platforms that had been masquerading as research stations and communication arrays. Weapons fire erupted from hidden asteroid bases, and ships that had appeared to be civilian cargo haulers dropped their disguises to reveal military-grade armaments. But more than that, the humans fought with a ferocity that defied their soft appearance. Where other species had calculated odds and surrendered when defeat was certain, humans threw themselves at impossible situations with desperate creativity. A damaged human frigate, its engines failing and hull breached, didn't retreat. Instead, it rammed itself into the Wrath's escort destroyer, sacrificing 12 crew members to take out a ship carrying 300 hegemony soldiers. A human fighter pilot ejected from his destroyed craft in the vacuum of space, used his suit's emergency thrusters to position himself near a hegemony cruiser, and manually activated the antimatter charge from his ship's warhead. The explosion tore through the cruiser's shields and crippled its engines. "This is impossible," Vextar's tactical officer reported, his voice strained. "They're taking losses at a 10-to-1 ratio, but they're not retreating. They're not following any logical military doctrine." Vextar watched in growing unease as his fleet's orderly formations began to crumble under the humans' chaotic, unpredictable attacks. They used strategies no civilized species would consider: ramming attacks, suicide runs, ships that continued fighting even after their life support had failed. The second lesson came when reinforcements arrived, not from Earth, but from the 17 human colonies throughout the system. Mining ships converted to bombers, passenger liners bristling with improvised weapons, even luxury yachts loaded with improvised explosives. But it was the third lesson that broke General Vexitar's understanding of warfare entirely. A transmission came through on all frequencies. Admiral Chen appeared again, but now she stood on what was clearly a damaged bridge, her uniform torn, and a cut bleeding freely above her left eye. "General Vextar," she said, her voice carrying to every ship in both fleets. "You called us soft. You thought our compassion was weakness, our mercy was vulnerability. But you misunderstood something fundamental about humanity." The camera panned to show the bridge crew around her, injured, exhausted, but still at their posts. "We are soft," Chen continued. "We do cry when we're hurt. We do mourn our dead. We do show mercy to our enemies. But these aren't weaknesses, General. They're reminders of what we're fighting for." She stepped closer to the camera, and Vextar saw something in her eyes that chilled his ichor. Not hatred, but absolute resolve. "We're soft because we choose to be, because we've learned that strength without compassion is just brutality. But when you threaten what we love, when you try to take away our choice to be gentle," her voice hardened, "that's when you discover what happens when soft things are pressed beyond their breaking point." The human fleet, battered and outnumbered, launched a final coordinated assault. They came not as individual ships seeking glory, but as a unified force protecting their home. Every human who died took multiple hegemony soldiers with them. Every ship that fell damaged 3 more before it went dark. In the end, as Vextar watched his flagship systems fail around him and prepared for the final human assault, he understood the truth he had been too arrogant to see. Humans weren't soft because they were weak. They were soft because they were strong enough to choose kindness, and when that choice was taken from them, when their loved ones were threatened, they became something far more dangerous than any warrior species the hegemony had ever faced. They became protectors with nothing left to lose. The last transmission from the hegemony's wrath was a single word from General Vextar to the hegemony high command: retreat. But by then, there was no fleet left to carry the message home.